welcome back. Meeting number 2, conversation number 2. Felt like we last week just flowed so easy. I expect at some point we'll stumble. And I'm going to look at you, not you looking at you or the camera or anything else. So we're having the conversation. We'll see how that turns out.
I didn't think it looked that bad last time. I watched the recording, but we'll see. We'll get better at it.
So we kind of did an overview, not just of ourselves, but our intent and a little bit about what it takes to succeed. I wanted to this week explore, and here's what y'all may or may not know, may or may not notice, but at this point we've read so many of the same books. And with the pace that you read at, you're probably catching up to me quickly.
Well, I cheat. I use Audible, so I do a shit ton of driving. So,
and I'm still the old-fashioned way. I like to highlight stuff, but one of the things we've identified that I shared with you, and now you see it, is that the more you read, the more commonality there is between all of these messages that were being given. It's just one author has a brilliant idea to spin it a different way, and we all buy it and eat it up. But I've always gotten something out of, I probably shouldn't say that. I don't remember the books I didn't get something out of, but I probably got something out of the vast majority of them.
Yep.
Because I was open to it. And again, when you peel back the onion and you look at that commonality, it's not all that complicated.
Very simple. And we'll probably say this a couple of times throughout the series. I don't call it a series, right? The things that we share and the things that the things that you can do are very simple, but not necessarily easy. And I think a lot of that challenge that most people have with doing some of these things and doing them consistently is their mindset, right? And the belief that they have about doing those things and correlating those to the goals that they want and the things they want to achieve or accomplish.
Well, it's 100% their mindset, which might just be our topic today. Nice.
It could be. Yeah, it could be.
And I think the good news for somebody that's willing to do the work, so few people will. Bobby and I put it this way: everybody wants to win, but a very, very small percentage of people will actually prepare and play to win.
Yep.
And so the opportunity for those that will do it is enormous. I mean, it's the American dream. It's the American possibility.
It is. And, that makes me think of another quote. I'm not going to remember who said it right this second, but we'll come
Somebody
back.
will fact check you and they'll put it in the comments.
Oh, you know what? It was Jim Rohn. And I'm sure you know who Jim Rohn is, and you guys might know who Jim Rohn is. If not, check him out. He said the things that are easy to do are also easy not to do. Very simple.
Most often people will make that choice. So mindset. So how do you start to address mindset? And we're not going to get real deep here. We'll leave the depth for somebody to go do on their own. Certainly willing to answer questions and provide any number of the resources that we have used to get here. But at a baseline, and it's neurological, it's scientific. I mean, it's really beyond debate. There's a lot of debate about science these days, but it's really beyond debate that it's nothing more than creating new habits, making the decision to create new habits, and reprogramming your subconscious so it doesn't sabotage your desire to create those new habits, and then doing it repetitively until they become habits.
Yeah, restructuring your mind.
And so that's where you start. I didn't really get it. I didn't really have a structure around it until I read The Miracle Morning. And that laid groundwork for me that has paid off tremendously since I read that book and created those new habits. And that's just really talking about getting your ass up in the morning and starting with, in my case, I meditate, I pray, I read, and I then work out. There's a part of that that I haven't ever adopted. I intend to do something about it, but I haven't, and that's journaling. But you do that. Right?
I love journaling. Yeah. So, and I kind of do it backwards. I guess it's backwards to what he explains in the book, but I like to wake up and work out first. I figure if I can get my body going and get the juices flowing right away, then that makes everything else easier. And my mindset around it is, working out, waking up and just like working out is probably the last thing that most people want to do. And it's in my mind like one of the hardest things to do right when you first get out of bed. So like for me, it's kind of like winning that internal battle where if I can start my day off and win that first battle of just doing the what I perceive to be the most challenging thing for me to do when I immediately wake up, it's all downhill from there, right? Everything else is easier.
Well, and I don't have a 7-foot tunnel of ice cold water in my backyard, but the first thing I do, and I learned a new trick and I gave it to my son. He's been doing it and it's been working. If you're having a hard time getting kick started in the morning, wake up, decide what it is that you want to do, and then count backwards from 5. And when you get to 1, just do it.
Just do it. Yep.
And so he started doing it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and doing it. And he's like, it works. I'm like, again, it's simple, just not necessarily easy, but I make a beeline, not getting too personal here, to the bathroom to get as cold water as I can get. I splash it all over my face to wake me up, get the sleep cobwebs out of my head, and then go on about my morning routine. So any of these little tricks, I don't know whether you do something like that, any of these little tricks become triggers to the next behavior.
Yeah. Well, there was a YouTube video I watched at some point. I watch a lot of YouTube. I love it because it's just so much information there, right? You can literally learn anything you want on YouTube. But there's a video and she talks about like activation energy, right? When you're like programming your mind. And that's when I first wake up in the morning, the first thing I think is like activation energy. And for some reason, that's a trigger that, activates everything else, right, for me to do. And just to step back for a second, because I believe journaling is very important. Goes along with that whole reprogramming and making sure that you are rewiring or building those pathways in your brain to recognize and then move you towards those things that you say you want to achieve. I write, I say every day, but right, not exactly every day, but damn near every day, exactly what I'm going for, like on a daily and annual basis. So my daily goals, my annual goals, and then just some affirmations that I say consistently to myself. And if you say them long enough to yourself, then your mind starts to believe them, and then that's just how life just starts to show up for you.
Oh, what a bunch of hooga crap.
For example, so I'll give you an example.
I'm kidding.
I know you are, but so I'll give you an example.
Your subconscious can't take a joke, so you're reprogramming your subconscious.
And it's just like when you buy a new car, and then all of a sudden the car's everywhere. Well, what if you could reprogram your brain to identify opportunities to make more money, right, or build a business or create passive income? Well, you can, and then once it's reprogrammed and set, right, those pathways are built in your brain or whatever. I'm not a neuroscientist, but once it's there, then your brain just will automatically see those things as if they're just, it's almost as if they're just showing up for you and they've never been there, but they've really been there the whole time.
Well, this is scientific. This is as deep as I intend to go. And I don't remember the terminologies. You'll remember us talking about it, but you're building new pathways neurologically. Mm-hmm. And the more you do it, the more substantiated those pathways that you've created become, that they become stronger. It's just like Jordan doing 100 free throws a day. Mm-hmm. He commented in a book that I read that was about this, that if he doesn't do 100, in doing 100, he's creating it's all mind, muscle memory. He's creating that habit, those neurological pathways. And when he slacks off, does 80 a day or whatever, the public probably doesn't notice it, mm-hmm. but he does.
Yep.
He notices the change in his performance by slacking off what got him to the level that he wanted to be at. So it's scientific. Again, look into it. I'll find out more, maybe post the resource in the comments, but it's scientific.
Yeah.
And we're all wired the same way, assuming we're all healthy and whatnot. We're all wired the same way.
Generally speaking.
Yeah. So I got some notes I'm going to be referring to. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. That's been said different ways too, like in Think and Grow Rich, one of your favorite books, right? And so what if you could, or you were confident you knew you could achieve success by just learning how to change your mindset? Well, you can, right?
Hmm.
And so what is mindset? What's mindset to you?
Well, to me, mindset is a set of beliefs that you.
Did you see my notes?
I didn't see those. No, I make all this stuff up. A set of beliefs that you base a lot of your reasoning and judgments, and where the majority, if not all, of your perceptions come from of your own reality, or like the things happening around you.
And what is reality?
That's you said you didn't want to go too deep on this stuff. That's
that occurred to me. So
yeah, I mean, reality is I don't want to say fictional, because there's concrete, right? So reality is the what your brain constructs of like the things happening around you, and that perception, and you've got filters and things, right, based on what you've been through.
So everybody's reality is slightly different.
Well, it's why 5 people can see the same crime, and you have 5 different reports of what happened.
Okay.
How's that getting?
We got to come up with a better analogy than crime committed.
First
but
thing,
everybody's reality is different, and yet there is only one reality. We're just all perceiving it differently.
Yep.
And as it relates to reprogramming and creating successful habits, etc., how we look at our challenges are completely internal.
Yep.
How we respond to them, completely internal, right? So as you said, your mindset is your set of beliefs, values, and attitudes about yourself and the world around you. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be changed, right?
Well, a real quick example, you said challenges, and I hear people say that, and you can tell a lot about someone's beliefs and their mindset based on how they articulate, right, and what they say and the language they use about the things that are happening to them, or I don't want to say for them, but essentially for them. A real simple way to change that and just add a different perspective instead of a challenge. I like to say an opportunity for a solution, or an opportunity to solve a problem. So it just occurs just a little bit differently. Like, this isn't an obstacle, but this is actually an opportunity for me to go make something better, provide a solution, help somebody out, whatever that might be.
So your words matter too.
Absolutely.
Right. You have probably heard me on more than one occasion say, it will come back to me, as opposed to, I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I wasn't born that way. That's a new habit that I created after reading the book and doing the work. Right.
Yep.
So absolutely, you can change your mindset. In fact, the ability to do so is a trait or habit that every single successful person has developed. I haven't met them. Maybe there are successful people out there that are miserable and haven't addressed or changed their mindset. I just haven't met them. I mean, every successful person I know, and oh, by the way, in the face of failure, like Woody Woodward, who's lost $1 million or has lost his wealth twice,
mm-hmm.
right? Most people would just buckle at that happening to them. Except if they made it happen the first time, they wouldn't buckle, right? But they sit here as they're listening to us today and think, oh my God, if I lost everything, it would ruin me. Well, you're ruined. You lost everything. But what they often say is, well, I know how to do it because I did it once. So I'm not fighting the same mental battle that everybody else is. Yeah. So it's easier to do it a second or a third time.
Yep. The belief is already there.
The belief is already there.
It's already established. So
you can absolutely change your mindset. In fact, you just have to. we've talked about the miracle morning. I hope y'all look into that and start to adapt those habits. And I don't think the order matters. You talked about working out first. I don't think he really gets into that. I do think that the fuel to wanting to change has to come from a very powerful why. So many people, and all of you have heard this. I don't know why it's such a common part of conversations, but everybody's heard that in January,
Gym memberships.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gym memberships soar, right? And by March, the gyms are empty again. Those of us that frequent the gym keep waiting for March to get rid of all these people, right? Well, why? I mean, so somebody wanted to change and get in better shape, and they went and joined a gym, but then give up. Why? Why do they give up? Why do they fall back into old habits? For all the things that we've talked about. But I'm going to guess they didn't first determine the benefits that were going to drive their willingness to change their mindset about their past behaviors and stick to a routine at the gym to achieve the goal, right?
Mindset.
I think that's you're just gonna say mindset from now on, all that throughout this whole thing.
Every pause I get.
But that motivation, that why, is where the willpower will come from. Willpower alone isn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
You need that fuel.
Yeah.
Right. Do you meditate?
I do.
And what have you gotten from it?
That's very good question. I'll say that's a very good question.
I haven't had to articulate it before.
No, I haven't. And let me back up and let's just say probably the most impactful thing that I've gotten from it, instead of trying to figure out and go through everything I could possibly try and come up with on it, the most impactful thing is it's kind of like you're practicing focus and training your mind, right, on being in one state or being in one place at a time, which for at least for me, and I don't know how you guys are, I don't know how most people are, but for me, before I was meditating, it was this thought, that thought, this thought, that thought, and random this, that, and that. So it literally has given me more, I would say it's more practice towards creating intentional focus and intentional drive towards like one thing at a time.
Well, and that is the initial point of it, is that practice, right? And the rubber bands in our brain, whatever, all these neurological connections, et cetera, the more free throws he shot, the better he got at hitting them, right? So that's the first level of beginning to practice changing your mindset. And then that ability that you develop to get focused, because my goodness, we're all just bombarded by distractions all day, every day. Constantly. But the ability to put them out and focus is a pretty valuable skill set. But it's again developing a successful habit that pays off throughout the day. And so you hear us talking about reading, et cetera. You just got to commit. And I've heard you say it before. We've heard everybody that's successful around us say it before. Even the beginning decision to begin to practice changing your mindset, reprogram, et cetera, boils down to you got to commit to personal development.
Absolutely. And
doing the work. You've gone to some extremes to do that, right? With Landmark. I've done similar things with Tony Robbins. And I mean, I know what you feel about Landmark. Where would you be without it?
Probably still complaining that things weren't working out for me, or waiting for something to fall into my lap. So I could sum up.
We talked about that last time.
Yeah, a little bit, but
about you understanding how much control you have.
Yeah, so I'll put it to you this way, and it's funny because I have these conversations all the time with people. Well, let me back up. I had the conversation in my head about what I hear other people say, and I'm like, "Ah, man, what? I wish I could just help them get it right." But like to your point, we can't make anyone or help anyone do their own internal work, right? It's a lot of internal work. I came up with a very short, simple, quick phrase to illustrate like what that has done for me over my life. So I call it being able to affect life versus being at the effect of life, and total 100% control of the direction and like where it's going and how things are occurring for you.
Is that a safe place ultimately to be? Or is it a scary place initially to be?
Initially scary when you actually realize and understand that, holy shit, I am responsible for it all, right? And took some time to actually accept that and take that in. But then extremely enlightening and powerful afterwards when you can start actually directing it is the right word, but
So it goes from fear to empowerment.
yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And I would say that's going to be the case with everything. When you first started making cold calls, and you made how many? Thousands. You ultimately realized that while that was, whether you admit it or not, initially fearful, you got out of your comfort zone, and that new habit ultimately became empowering too. I mean, you could go into any market, anywhere in the country, and start having 2 or 3 listings within a few months.
Yep. Just do the work.
That's pretty empowering. So you got to face your stinking fears. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And all these things are just things that hold people back, and will get easier again when you make a decision to begin changing your mindset and reprogramming your subconscious. You mentioned self-talk. What's what you say when you talk to, man, I haven't thought about this book in a long time. What you say when you talk to yourself by, it's a weird name.
Oh, you know what? Hold on.
I'm sure it's over there. Put it on top.
You guys tell that we're just doing this stuff on the fly. So what's it say?
Shad Helmstead. There you go.
Let me talk to yourself.
Right. What to say? I mean, simple book. I love it. I've quoted it. I've recommended it hundreds and hundreds of times. So great place to start, along with Miracle Morning. But ultimately, I think what's also critical, and if you've heard the phrase "fake it till you make it," this is what they're talking about. They're not telling you as a new entrepreneur, or if you're self-employed, haven't held on to your job, dove in feet first. They're not telling you to go out and buy a bunch of expensive things. Don't drive a Mercedes right out of the gate.
I did some of that earlier.
Well, right. And some people are motivated by having to pay for that, right? But you better be real in touch with your motivation to take that step. But that's not, whether you do it or not, that's not what's meant by faking it till you make it. Our mentor Shane tells it this way. He realized that he needed to become an actor, and he needed to mimic the successful people that he was fortunate enough to have around him in their mindset and their behavior. He's like, I was much more capable of acting as though I was successful than convincing myself I was capable of it. But he faked it till he made it, and he had faith on all the other development that he had done, that was one of the key things to get him there. And so that's where fake it till you make it comes from. But in light of that, or in addition to that, folks, you've just got to find people that are already where you want to be. And I guarantee you they're already in the mindset, because if you want financial freedom, they're already financial free. That's where they started. So you got to surround yourself with people that have done it, that are living it, that are willing, because just surrounding yourself with people, I mean, you can start by reading books and things like that, but ultimately you got to have them, you got to work with them, you got to interact with them every day. And they've got to be willing to let you in and support you in that way. I don't know. I mean, we are so fortunate in that we've got so much of that around us. But we were also open to it, sought it out, found it, took action, engaged, so it's amazing how lucky you get the harder your work, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I heard that a lot coming up. Like I was always the lucky person because things just seemingly, fell on my lap or came to me, but no one saw the 100 things I did that turned to shit, right? And that, led me to that one opportunity or whatever it might be. The other thing, just want to echo one thing that you said with surrounding yourself, right, with the right people and stuff like that. If you are, because I know there's some people out there like, well, I don't know any financially free people, right? I don't know any millionaires. I don't know people that own businesses or have tons of assets or whatever it might be. One of the things that you could do and surrounding yourself with the right people just means, being in touch with the right people, right? That you want to be like, you want to mimic or, follow in their footsteps. So, for example, like I love John C. Maxwell, right? He writes a lot of books on leadership and stuff like that. Although I can't actually go see John Maxwell, well, let me take that back. I can go see him, right? Although I haven't, right, gone and seen him yet. I've read 4 or 5 or 6 of his books, and it's like I get to hang out with him, right, mentally, because I'm actually reading his thoughts and being in the same mindset, right, same frame of mind that he is. So it doesn't necessarily mean like you have to go right out and find these people and like attach yourself to them. Find resources, right? Things you can plug into. I talked about YouTube. I love YouTube.
Yeah,
So
TED
much
Talks.
TED Talks. Oh my God. You get lost in TED Talks, TED Talk hole. I've been there for a while. But even if you can't physically see them, shake their hand, be with them, find resources so you can surround yourself with that type of mentality and those people that are doing what you want to do.
And I agree that's where you begin, but you've ultimately got to have it.
You got to find them.
You've got to
ultimately, right?
connect to those people.
To your point, as you start building those pathways and start building that belief,
Those
then
people show up.
those people just start showing up.
Now, they've always been there.
Yes, I know. But you're finally starting to get open to it, right?
And ultimately, listen, time is infinite. Our time is not. You don't have to do any of this. But change is inevitable, and it's going to happen. And people are going to go from rags to riches all around you, whether you do any of this or not. The question really is, will you? And I think a key part of that growth is being vulnerable, being real, being genuine. I mean, we're certainly going to be, as we have these conversations, and talk about, we haven't done it yet, but I assume maybe we should introduce a segment where we talk about what were our challenges this week.
Mhm.
How did we overcome them? How did we approach them? And what was the success, the outcome? I mean, our team's growing. We've added some incredible people this month. That's not happening by accident. And yet there's probably months where we thought, will we ever add anybody else again?
Yep.
And so get out of your comfort zone, be vulnerable, and ultimately there's just no way to succeed without first being or becoming comfortable with the F word, which is
Failure.
be careful.
Failure. Yeah.
Failure. You're going to fail. Now, here's the thing. Are you going to fail? No, because failure only comes from what?
Well, if you quit,
Quit.
just temporary defeat.
Yep. So in the real estate space, in the brokerage space, for example, we have an 87% failure rate. That's not true. We have an 87% quit rate.
Quitting,
right? And I guarantee you there's stories of agents out there that battled for years to figure out all that we're talking about, finally didn't become a statistic, and today are incredibly successful. Now we know they're not as successful as they could be because they're actively earning their income, right? But So what a great way to shift. Mindset's everything. If you're not doing the work to begin to reprogram your subconscious and shift the way that you form reality, you're going to struggle. You're also going to struggle if you don't transition from the left-hand side of the quadrant to the right-hand side of the quadrant. We talked about that last week. I'm not telling you, John's not telling you to quit your job tomorrow, necessarily.
I did.
I ultimately did too, but what we are saying is a part of this process and changing your mindset is you got to start looking ahead and you got to accept reality. And if you want financial freedom, again, you rate financial freedom at a 7 or above on a scale of 10, 10 being high, then you can't get there. You don't have any choice but to transition to the right-hand side of the line.